Hey y'all, Robert here with another episode of Sound Strategies, and this week we're going to be talking about using EQ to create some dimensionality while mixing. That's creating depth and width using the frequency spectrum. But before we go on, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and click the little bell for notifications on new videos each week. So a mix replicates the experience of an acoustic space. In this video, we'll look at some ways to create this sense of space by discussing how we perceive high and low frequencies differently. At the end of this video, you will be able to use this knowledge to create spacious, three-dimensional mixes with width and depth that better represent an acoustic space. So we have three dimensions to talk about, and the first being frequency height. Now, I literally think of this as low to high frequencies. If you checked out my last video in this series, I talked about different frequency areas being like shelves on a bookshelf, with the low end at the bottom and the very high frequencies at the top. And this also connects with many monitoring setups, with the sub on the floor and the main monitors sitting at about ear level. So the more high frequencies contained within a sound, the higher it's going to appear on that frequency shelf, whereas lower frequency instruments will naturally be more reproduced by the sub on the floor. So the next dimension that's quite simple to adjust is width. This, of course, is left to right. We have our left speaker, we have our right speaker, and the perceived differences between these two speakers creates width. We can create this width by panning instruments to either side to create some differences. But frequency plays a major role in this because high and low frequencies affect our ears differently. High frequencies are very directional, meaning that our ears can pick up and locate differences in higher frequencies more easily. But with low frequencies, not so much. Low frequencies are much less directional because of their long wavelength, and their ability to bend and build up in rooms can make them much more difficult to locate. So the third dimension now is depth, the perceived distance of a sound relative to the listener. And this dimension can get a little bit more complicated than the others. And to create this sense of depth, we need to understand how sound is affected by distance. So high frequencies are fragile, whereas low frequencies are much stronger. We're going to hear much less high frequencies at a distance as those waves lose energy and are dispersed more easily throughout the air, whereas low frequencies are much stronger and they can carry their energy much further. So to illustrate this, I want you to imagine what it sounds like to be outside of a club with music playing inside. You hear the low frequencies pass through the closed doors, and you can hear the kick drum. You can hear the of the bass frequencies, but you're not going to hear the hi-hats or the clarity of the vocals or very much of the guitars. But if you open the door to the club, boom, you get this rush of high frequencies pouring in, and in an instant you can hear everything. It sounds much, much richer and much clearer. And the reason is because low frequencies are much stronger and they can penetrate through the walls, whereas the high frequencies reflect more easily, they get dispersed more easily, and their waves run out of energy so they don't carry as far. So how does frequency content affect the perception of depth? Well, now that we know that higher frequencies disperse more easily, filtering them out can create the illusion of a sound being further away, whereas boosting these higher frequencies gives the impression of a sound being much closer. So in this session, I've got three different instrument groups that are competing for space. I've got a 4-part soprano, alto, tenor, bari harmony, and then some vocal ahs over that. And then I've got a couple of lead synths that come in here. Okay, so right now there's not a lot of depth separating these different groups. So I'm going to use this idea of filtering out high frequencies to create the perception of depth between those three different groups. So first, I've got the 4-part harmony group rooted to a bus. And this is where I'm going to add a channel EQ. And I'm going to start by filtering out some of the high end. I want this group to appear the furthest away, so we'll go down to about 3 kilohertz. I'm going to do a similar cut on the vocal ahs. I'm going to add in our channel EQ, and because I want this to sit in front of the harmony, we're not going to go down as far. I'm going to cut everything above about 6 kilohertz. Let's listen to what that sounds like with the lead synth added in. So now the synth melody appears much closer to the listener, and I want that to be my lead element. So we started by cutting out some high frequencies to bring those instruments further back in the mix. And now I'm going to use a high shelf to cut out a little bit more presence out of the vocal bus. So that's really helping those textures sit behind the lead synths and making them act more of like a nice pad sound for the lead to sit on. And if you really want this synth to be a bit more in focus, we could boost up the high frequencies just a bit. Here I'm boosting a shelf 3 decibels at about 4K. Let's have a listen to that. Excellent. Now we have the 4-part harmony sitting in the back, the vocal ahs, which are a bit closer but not sounding as forward as the synths. We've separated these groups into different layers of space, which creates more depth within our mix. By managing the top end of the frequency spectrum, we can control the overall depth and clarity of the individual elements within the mix. Filtering out this top frequency shelf on the supporting instruments allows lead instruments more clarity and prevents the air of the song from becoming cluttered, harsh, or cloudy. Now this is a similar process to how we cleared out some space for the low end in the previous video. So using EQ to manage space within your projects is an essential part of mixing, but it's only one tool, and we can do even more. Great mixing requires a combination of tools and a process to using those tools and techniques effectively. So for those of you who want to take your mixes to the next level and are looking for a system that teaches you how to use the tools you already own to create better, more confident mixes, I've created a course that does just that. It's called the 7-Level Essential Mixing Checklist. At the end of this course, you will know how to create outstanding mixes that stand out in clarity, depth, balance, vocal dominance, and actual low end, all by using the essential mixing tools that you already have within your DAW. This course will equip you with the skills to be able to significantly improve your mixing process and release mixes that hold their own among the best. So check the description below for a link to the course page and scroll to the bottom to check out the sample lesson. And as always, thank you for watching this video and happy mixing.